We are now in week 4 of the Elestrals Championship League Season 2, and I'm up against Ancient Caster. Caster has access to the fire and wind elements, good old summer winds, and honestly, I don't think that's the most preposterous build for him to bring. As water is a very slow element, I could totally see him just capitalizing on Exaltair being to burn over the top and not necessarily worry about hitting over my stuff, and then using Sorlet for some really strong control pieces, running all off with Hau'oli just to give him some very consistent search power for that strategy. He could also easily run it off with Necruff, another great attacker, and Eruption to be able to close out the game a bit quicker, though with Eruption, he does have to play around the fact that I have access to fire to turn them off. So I'm not going to say he can't bring Eruption, but he also might be a bit hesitant too because I have that hard counter. And of course, Wind just has access to a ton of good stuff like Hydrake into Pentair. That's super scary. I already mentioned Sorlet. Aramir is a big annoying dude, and P-Gust to also pop my runes, something that I notably cannot do. And also Fire has some stuff that he could pivot over to as well, though I think that's a bit less likely. The biggest one I can think of is Kinleo, just to kind of run through my defensive bodies without having to attack over and necessarily deal with counter runes such as shield. So this week I just decided to go with a deck that I think can put on the pressure and try to make sure that an Exaltair cannot be set up and just start burning me for 2 every single turn. So starting off with my deck list, I am bringing my 5 guys package again. As you can see, I've brought it all 4 weeks in various forms. It's just that strong and really adds a level of consistency to my deck. So of course, 3 Necruff, 3 Galaxy, and 3 Smoltuga. I'm not really going to go over the details because it's the same as always with the search power, the good offense, just enabling big attackers. You know it all now, and I think it's going to be good in this matchup as well because Necruff can easily pressure the Exaltair. Smoltuga, when I'm not having to answer an Elestral right away, can search out my Necruff so I have them to start pressuring stuff like Exaltair. And then Galaxy just lets me capitalize on the fact that Smoltuga is going to be the slowest part of my deck and can turn it into 2 attackers. So if Gorgon's Gaze isn't on the board, it's going to actually be really difficult to deal with 2 5 attackers. But of course, that can't be all my Elestrals, so I do run the 3 Kinleo and the 3 Volcaries. So kind of a repeat from last week against Mill, just kind of keeping the pressure on. Volcaries is great just to be able to hit really strong numbers, and since Ancient Caster has access to the fire element, there's a chance that Volcaries can be a big swinger into his stuff, capitalizing off the fire spirits on his board as well. But I do run some of the runes just to make sure I can hit over relevant numbers, being able to hit over Sorlets, and my opposing Necruffs I think will be really strong. Exaltairs should be easy. Oh, and Aramir, that's the other 5 body that I was thinking of with that. And Kinleo will just be nice because, again, if my opponent doesn't have Gorgon's Gaze, I don't even need to attack into stuff. It just means that pretty much Caster gets focused in on either you have the Gorgon's Gaze to stop the Kinleo, or I am answering those pesky Exaltairs, P-Gus, Aramirs, Sorlets, you name it. It's just going to be a really strong way to just get those off the board, get rid of them with very minimal answers from Caster to stop it, because I just need to keep him off of his control and powerful burn pieces to be able to win. At least that's the theory that I'm going into this match with. Speaking of theory, I think it's a good disclaimer for this matchup. I'm going off of pure theory here. I have not tested this deck, so this will be a very interesting week to see if I get punished for doing just that. And simply put, I've had a busy week, so I've decided to not delegate much time into testing this list, or really any time into testing this list this week in lieu of other stuff. We'll see if it comes bite me in the butt. If it does, oh well, it is what it is. But it was just a week where I was like, I think there's other things that need to take higher priority. And you know what? This will be a fun test to see how far theory can take you yet again. I know last ECL, it didn't work out well for me. I'm not expecting it to work out well for me this week. But you know what? It is what it is. Moving over to the runes, the fire-specific ones, I've got 1 Hammer of Hephaestus, 3 Hephaestus, and the 3 Volcanic Forge, just like last week. And same kind of idea here is the Volcanic Forge is going to be great with Volcaries, making it a 6 attacker, and it's meaning it can easily hit over Necruffs, it can hit over pretty much any 5 body, and that's really the goal, just small, efficient beaters, and Volcanic Forge enables that greatly. Of course, this can benefit Caster's deck as well if he's running a primary fire package, but ideally, the Volcari should be able to deal with that as well, or at least crash into another Volcari. So I'm not too concerned the fact that Caster has fire. It'll just take me playing smarter around those cards as well. But considering I think he's more likely to focus a lot more on wind because of the Hau'oli consistency and the burn from Exaltair if I go more of a water package, I do think that this will be really strong. And if he pivots away from that in games 2 and 3, seeing that I'm not on a slower deck, I can always substitute some of these cards out with my side deck. Hephaestus for a similar reason, as it helps me build up more spirits on board if Volcanic Forge doesn't stick, since P-Gust can, and Tornado actually can deal with Volcanic Forge, so Tornado's not a hard answer. So P-Gust really here just getting rid of my Volcanic Forge. Hephaestus can help supplement that, though I do need to be wary of the P-Gust, so really just be to buff up that Volcaries when need be, and 1 Hammer of Hephaestus. If Kinleo is a big part of the board or his deck, I can easily just kind of set up to close out a game a Hammer of Hephaestus on something with the Hephaestus. I only think the 1 will be fine just to search on a pinch if I need it. And the other reason why I like this setup here is with specifically Kinleo, the other part of this package. Hephaestus will be great there, of course, to give me a Nexus bank, but also with P-Gus being a real threat, I can easily go Hephaestus, search out Hammer for a Spirit, and then Nexus a Spirit away from Hephaestus, and if the Hephaestus dies or I just don't decide to sack it off anyway, I got another Nexus bank ready to go. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 deal, which I really like, since I think Kinleo will be an MVP in this matchup. Moving right along to the counter runes, I've got 3 Tsunami, 3 Gorgon's Gaze, 3 Pandora's Box, 2 Poison Tipped Arrow, and 2 Shield of Achilles. So really going ham on these counter runes here. What is that? 13 counter runes this time around? Yeah, 13 counter runes. I think this will be very important for this matchup. Tsunami, in case he starts aggressing, can build up a bigger board than me. It can help me kind of carve back into this game, and this can be great against stuff such as Sorlet, being able to switch it to its defense stat, which is a lot easier to hit over. Even Smoltuga can hit over it, which I think will be super important. And for other weird scenarios that might pop up, maybe like an Exaltair with Island of Aeolia on the board, change defense might come up there. Mostly it's just to be able to stave off some attack damage and also just kind of switch that Sorlet to defense. Also works with Nekruff. Gorgon's Gaze, I think, will be super important in this matchup to stop stuff such as Hydrake and potentially Sorlets. I don't think it's necessarily as good in this matchup as some of the other matchups, but it's still super flexible, which I think is going to be really strong. The only one I don't see myself using it on too frequently is probably the Exaltair. It's only if the Exaltair can attack, because pretty much I use 2 spirits to stop Exaltair from burning 2 spirits. That's not really worth it. So it might just be bait to get P-Gus to pop it and hopefully pop it instead of one of my other runes, which I think will be more impactful. Speaking of which, Pandora's Box is going to be super impactful in this matchup, stopping the Aeolus and the Hydrake. The idea why I want to max this one out is make it so that Aeolus can't toolbox through Ancient Caster's deck. Pretty much make it so that he's relying on his draws to be able to find important pieces such as Exaltair, such as the Sorlets, such as even Nekruff. Not Nekruff, that's a bad example. P-Gus, that's a good example. I think, did I say Hydrakes? I might have not said Hydrakes. But keeping him off those pieces and forcing him to have to hard draw into it, but also really limiting his options in the long run. It does cost 2 spirits, so it is quite expensive, but I think that if I let him get that value and consistency off, it's going to be increasingly difficult for me to win in the long run. And at least with the Aeolus, it's 2 spirits for 2 spirits, so that's fine as well. PTA, just 2 copies of it, because I could see times where it's going to be good. I could also see times where it's just going to not be very great. So stuff against like defensive Aramare, P-Gust, Exaltair if it can attack, awesome, PTA. But there's also might be other times where maybe I had one Elestral, like a Nekruff on board, it got shielded back to hand. I don't really want to use PTA. That's going to cost me 3 spirits with the attack, unless it's maybe P-Gust at 2 attack. So that's why I think 2 copies will be nice, hopefully to have it when it does come up and not when, well, it wouldn't be very good. And then similar situation with Shield as well. Can be popped by P-Gust before I can get any value off of it. But in general, it could also be pretty good at protecting my Elestrals, protecting my life total, getting annoying pieces back to hand. The only difference is, with stuff like Exaltair, if it's loaded up with like 3 spirits, yeah, I'm shielding that thing. But if it's poking for 1 spirit after nexusing to a P-Gust and didn't snipe this one, do I really want to give the Exaltair back in hand just to start nexusing again? Not really. I'd rather deal with it. But then also stuff like Aramare, just be able to stall a turn, protect an Elestral might just be good enough to build up a bigger board. So I still think it will be a-okay. Arguably, could be running it at 3, but also I've got my sideboard, so I think just a 2-2 split, because also deck space is tight here, and I didn't have time to test it to see if there's anything I could cut. So I say I didn't have time. I could have made time. I chose to prioritize other stuff, so I'm not going to make that excuse here. But that is my counter rune package, and we'll see if, again, the theory pays off here. And then rounding off the main deck, we've got the Invoke runes, 3 Ambrosia, 2 Resting on Your Laurels. Ambrosia, I think, will be super crucial in keeping me in this matchup. It's just healing with some, especially against Burn, and hopefully just to outlast Wind to some extent, because Wind is a very expensive element, so the more Ambrosias I find, the more I can buff up my life total against Wind. Wind really relies on that Exaltair to make up that difference from what I've seen with the deck, so hoping that this can help balance out the game and keep me in a bit longer. And Resting on Your Laurels, I could see a situation where I build up a bigger board and Laurels is dead, so I don't want to run the 3 copies, but if, like, my opponent starts loading up an Exaltair, he's just manages to shield stuff back and get a few Elestrals up, Laurels is just a great way to get caught up again and clean up the board, because I don't want to Ancient Caster just build up more Elestrals than I do. So just a great way to kind of catch back up and equalize on the board. I think 2 copies will be enough because, again, I want to have as many live cards as I can. As you can see, I'm not running Nectar of the Gods. I'd rather just have the cards I need in hand to put the pressure on the board than spend spirits to draw cards, because again, that puts me closer to burn. So that's the theory, at least going into this deck. As for the spirits, I run 13 fire spirits and 7 water spirits. I am more fire focused on the deck, as you can see by my rune choices, and also most of my Elestrals are fire as well, so I want to make sure I have plenty of fire for those. The water package is still strong in it, but it's also mostly just single spirits, so I think 7 water spirits will be a-okay for that. And I do run a bit more fire in my side deck, hence why I want to prioritize it. Speaking of the side deck, I run the 1 Leviathan, 2 Blazerus, 1 Trifernal, 3 Molstachian, 2 Sluggle, the extra PTA, extra shield, and extra Laurels. This was not fanned out very well, but oh well. So the idea behind these choices are the 1 Leviathan, because I do run a bit more water. Molstachian can get expensive, so it's just a way to be able to buff up my water spirits if I side in the Molstachian, and that's if I feel that my attackers in this deck just aren't enough. I need to hit that 6 attack. Molstachian will be great for that. Maybe the Volcari's plan isn't panning out, and this can be an alternate way just to have a bigger attacker enabled for me. And Sluggle as the other water, just to give me some extra recovery against water if I really feel like I need it, and I'm seeing opportunities where I might be able to cast Sluggles. But since I don't have any draw power in the deck either, I'd rather just prioritize attackers, because I think just spending a turn just recovering up and not really addressing the board might hurt. And without Earthquakes, I don't know how consistently I'll be able to set up a situation where I'm equalizing on the board to be able to play a Sluggle, but we'll see if that pops up in the actual game. It's going to be a lot of pivoting in the moment and just hoping that I'm guessing right on what I need to pivot to with the side deck. But moving over to the Fire Elestrals, these are the other reasons I want to keep more fire in my main deck, because I got 2 Blazers, 1 Trifernal. If for whatever reason it feels like I need another way to close out the game, Blazerus might be relevant. Maybe Caster's on something crazy. I'm just like, sure, let's go Blazerus Trifernal. Trifernal could help me keep stuff off the board as well. I don't know. Could be a cool play, though, since Tsunami is not in my opponent's deck. I don't know how often it will be my opponent stacking up multiple Elestrals on board against me versus us trading them. So I just need a way to round up my side deck, and it's like, this is a cool top end with an already fire heavy build. 1 PTA if I find that I just need more removal in my deck, similar for Laurels. I can just side those in to make sure I have as many copies as possible. An additional shield if I feel like I need more ways to keep Elestrals off of attacking, and bouncing them back to hand is fine. Just to pivot over that, I imagine that might be more relevant in the fire matchup than the wind matchup though. But hey, if my opponent's really going heavy on something like Penterror, this could be a huge card. Even like Chrysor, this could be a great card to deal with that. And that's my deck list for this week. Will this theory pay off, lead me to a victory, or will it blow up in my face and I should have prepared more? We'll see. Regardless, I'm super excited for this matchup. I do enjoy playing against Caster. I know I'll be pining for revenge since I did win him in the last time we played, so we'll see. I really am excited, and you can look forward to that match coming out tomorrow. But now I want to hear from you all. Do you agree or disagree with any parts of my decks? Like, what would you bring into the Fire-Wind matchup with Water-Fire? And if you've enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like, subscribing, and turning on the notification bell so you're notified when I do upload more content. I'll have all my fellow ECL participants' channels linked down in the description below, with Ancient Caster being the top one since he is my opponent this week. And I'll also have my playlist with all my other ECL content linked down below and up in the card above so you can get caught up if you have fallen behind. And with all that being said, look forward to more content, including tomorrow's matchup, coming out real soon.